While I am engaged in the business of killing Lord Vishnu, go down to the planet Earth, which is flourishing due to Brahminical culture and a Kshatriya government. These people engaged in austerity, sacrifice, Vedic study, regulative vows, and charity destroy all the people thus engaged. So this is Hiranyakashipu speaking. It's said that every single word of Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna, and is it describing pure bhakti. So somehow or other, this is also describing bhakti. Maybe Mother Saraswati has to give us the alternative meanings. Like there are some verses, I believe, which are actually they seem to be on the surface. They seem to be like criticism or blasphemy, like of Krishna, but in actual fact, like I don't know if it's Shishupal or I can't remember exactly at the moment, but actually, if they can be interpreted in quite the opposite way, that they're actually glorification of Krishna in some way or other. So purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's quite a long purport, so try to be attentive. Hiranyakashipu's main purpose was to disturb the demigods. He planned first to kill Lord Vishnu, so that with Lord Vishnu's death, the demigods would automatically weaken and die. Another of his plans was to disturb the residents of the planet Earth. The peace and prosperity of the residents of Earth and all the other planets were maintained by the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4.13, Chaturvarnyam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagashaha. According to the three modes of material nature and the work ascribed to them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. On all the planets, there are different types of residents, but the Lord recommends, referring especially to the planet Earth, which is inhabited by human beings, that society be divided into four varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. Before the advent of Lord Krishna on this earth, it is understood that the earth was managed by the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. The duty of the Brahmanas is to cultivate Shama, peacefulness, Dhamma, self-control, Titiksha, tolerance, Satyam, truthfulness, Shocham, cleanliness, and Arjavam, simplicity. And then to advise the Kshatriya kings how to rule the country or planet. Following the instructions of the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas should engage the populace in austerity, sacrifices, Vedic study, and adherence to the rules and regulations established by Vedic principles. Yeah, I'll read that again. Following the instructions of the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas should engage the populace in austerity, sacrifices, Vedic study, and adherence to the rules and regulations established by Vedic principles. They should also arrange for charity to be given to the Brahmanas, sannyasis, and temples. This is the godly arrangement of Brahminical culture. People are inclined to offer yajna because unless sacrifices are offered, there will be insufficient rain. Yagyat bhavati parajanya, which will hamper agricultural activities. Parajanyat anasambhavaha. By introducing Brahminical culture, therefore, a Kshatriya government should engage people in performing yajna, studying the Vedas and giving charity. Thus the people will receive their necessities for life very easily, and there will be no disturbances in society. In this regard, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3.12, Ishtan bogan hivo deva dasyante yagyabhavitaha tadatan apradayabhyo yobungte stena eva saha. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, supply all necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. The demigods are authorized supplying agents who act on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of prescribed yagyas. In the Vedas, there are different kinds of yagyas prescribed for different kinds of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one who cannot understand what the Personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. According to the different material qualities of the person concerned, different types of yagyas are recommended in the Vedas. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely according to different qualities. For example, the meat-eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature, and before the goddess the sacrifice of animals is recommended. But for those in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Vishnu is recommended. Ultimately, all yagyas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position. For ordinary men, at least 5 yagyas, known as Pancha Mahayagya, are necessary. One should know, however, that all the necessities of life that human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. Consider, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables include grains, fruits, vegetables, milk and sugar for persons in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians such as meats, none of which can be manufactured by men. Then again, take for example heat, light, water and air, which are also necessities of life. None of them can be manufactured by human society. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall or breeze, without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on supplies from the Lord. Even for our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw materials like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essentials, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord. With the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely, liberation from the material struggle for existence. This aim of life is attained by performance of yagyas. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves, and therefore we are punished by the laws of material nature. A society of thieves can never be happy, for they have no aim in life. The gross materialist thieves have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification, nor do they have knowledge of how to perform yagyas. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yagya, namely the Sankirtan yagya, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. Hiranyakashipu planned to kill the inhabitants of earth so that yagya would stop, and the demigods, being disturbed, would die automatically when Lord Vishnu, the Yagyeshvara, was killed. These were the demoniac plans of Hiranyakashipu, who was expert in such activities. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Verse again. Tavad yata bhuvam yuyam brahma shatra sameditam. Sudayadvam tapoyagya svajaya vratadaninaha. Hiranyakashipu says, while I am engaged in the business of killing Lord Vishnu, go down to the planet Earth, which is flourishing due to Brahminical culture and a Kshatriya government. These people engage in austerity, sacrifice, Vedic study, regulative vows, and charity. Destroy all the people thus engaged. So, Hiranyakashipu thinks that he can kill Lord Vishnu. So he's definitely in Maya. Or otherwise he's just bragging. But this is the nature of the demoniac mentality, actually killing Lord Vishnu, trying to kill Lord Vishnu. And this is the situation that we're currently in, mostly, in the world, because the rulers of society are trying to exclude God from their government. So the Kshatriyas, because Prabhupada in the first half of this purport is basically talking about how the earth was managed by Brahmas and Kshatriyas. So actually we're not ruled by Kshatriyas at the moment. We're ruled more like by Vaishyas, by businessmen, if they're that really, because they're not really Vaishyas, because they're not protecting cows, which is the duty of the Vaishya, to protect cows and supply all the wholesome requirements of society. So they're supplying so many unwholesome and so many useless things for society, which are just wasting the resources of the planet. So that, and not only just wasting, but actually harming the planet and the health of all the living beings in the planet, on the planet. And therefore, so much of the resources of this earth are devoted to trying to cure or solve those problems. So I think the biggest budget in this United Kingdom, so-called United Kingdom, is for health. The second biggest budget, or they may be the other way around, just varies, I'm not sure when, is the defence budget. So literally billions of pounds. I don't know, I heard one figure, maybe out of date, probably is out of date now, 4-5 billion spent each year on health, like the health service. And actually, so much of it is unnecessary. Because if you go to the hospitals, especially the accident and emergency, I don't know if any of you had cause to go on, especially on a Friday night or a Saturday night. But who do you find there? You find the drunks, people who have had accidents because they were intoxicated, drug addicts, people in fights like this. Isn't it true? I think so. That's what you find. Because I was talking to one of our congregational members in Manchester, who's a doctor who was working in the Manchester Royal Infirmary in the accident and emergency centre, and he said that actually that is the case. Most people, it's self-induced. And even those who are not getting intoxicated and landing up in the hospital, they are maybe suffering from more long-term chronic illnesses like heart disease, cancer, so many different medical conditions. They are also self-induced. They're warned, actually, that smoking can damage your health. Smoking kills, but they continue to do that. They're also warned not to drink more than 5, for men it's like, I don't know what it is, 5 glasses of alcohol or something. Units, okay, a unit's less than a glass probably, is it? Women less, but they still do it, even though they're advised by the health service, because the government's confused actually. They want to make money, so they're taxing, and they're getting a lot of money from selling of tobacco products and from alcohol as well. But at the same time, they're trying to tell people it's not good. So they're just confused. They're not really, they don't know how to deal with these problems. So therefore, so many people are unnecessarily getting themselves prematurely sick and landing up in a hospital bed and being maintained by the society. And anyway, you could go on endlessly discussing actually the mismanagement of this world generally. So Srila Prabhupada is telling us here, and I suppose indirectly, Hiranyakashipu is telling us here how to run a proper society. In other words, it has to be Brahminical culture first, and the Kshatriyas are governed by the Brahminical class. So what are the qualities required? So I was listening to a nice class earlier from Chowpatty because I didn't have much time to prepare for this. So I was listening to a really nice class given by Mahamuni Prabhu, a Srila Prabhupada disciple, in December 2007 in Chowpatty, and on this particular verse. He was saying some very nice things, and he was talking about these qualities, sama, dhamma, titiksha, peacefulness, self-control, tolerance, satyam, truthfulness, shocham, cleanliness, arjavam, simplicity. And he was saying, actually, that it's not that everybody is expected to have all these qualities. The brahmanas are expected to have these qualities. But you can't expect to have the Kshatriyas to have such qualities. For instance, peacefulness is very much a Brahminical quality. And it is required of the brahmanas. But a Kshatriya isn't necessarily peaceful. At some point he may be, but he has a tendency, just like Krishna said to Arjuna, that you can't just renounce and go to the forest. You'll automatically end up in a fight, somehow or other. So, therefore, you must fight. You just engage your propensities. So there are those who have that fighting propensity. And that is required in society. There is required to be a police force to control the unruly criminal elements of society. Otherwise, they will get out of hand. So, Kshatriyas are required. But the most important thing is they must be directed by the brahmanas. And the brahmanas must be peaceful and unattached. So basically they must come to the mode of goodness. And if the Kshatriyas follow the direction of the brahmanas, then society can be properly managed and regulated, so that actually everybody has the chance to perfect their lives and elevate themselves to the highest possible platform, which is, of course, we know, Krishna consciousness, pure bhakti, prema bhakti, pure love of Krishna. In fact, His Grace Mahamuni Prabhu was talking of one, when he was a younger devotee, I don't know, maybe it was in the 70s or something like that, he had one temple president who was called, I think he said, Vamana Prabhu. And he was a very capable person. and but he was very creative. And on one occasion, he went to Prabhupada, and he said that actually, I want to join the Air Force, which now seems a bit funny, but since he was in full-time Krishna consciousness at the time, he was temple president at the time, apparently. But he had this, and Prabhupada says, why? Why do you want to join the Air Force? You're engaged in the most perfect process, Krishna consciousness, and you want to join the Air Force? He says, yes, because I know that in the Air Force I will be paid to learn so many skills which I can then engage in Krishna service. So sometimes we have that idea, I actually have that idea sometimes, that yes, I can study this or study that, and then I can use that in Krishna's service. But of course, if you already have those skills, then you can. But Srila Prabhupada said, no. You become a brahmana and preach to those who already have those skills or that expertise, and engage them in Krishna's service. So I thought this was it was actually a very important point for me to understand, that actually it's so rare for modern people to come to Krishna consciousness or aspire to come to Krishna consciousness, that actually it's essential that whoever does have the opportunity really tries to become a brahmana. And then we can engage others in Krishna's service. But otherwise we're likely to get diverted, we're likely to get distracted, because our association is likely to be with non-devotees, and unless we're very fixed up, just like of course some are, like Tamal Krishna Goswami. He went to college, he went to university at quite a late age, comparatively speaking, and he was able to do that because of he was so fixed in Krishna consciousness, and he had a particular purpose in mind. Very strong purpose. He was advanced in Krishna consciousness. But definitely the general principle is that first of all we should become fixed in Krishna consciousness. We should become brahmanas. We should acquire the knowledge and the qualities of a brahmana. Of course, it shouldn't end there, just becoming a brahmana. We should obviously become a devotee. Try to become a pure devotee of Krishna. That is the most important point. A Vaishnava, a Brahmana, a Vaishnava or a devotee is higher than a Brahmana, in fact. But not that we should neglect acquiring a Brahminical, the Brahminical platform. Just like now we have the very nice academy, Mayapur Academy, which is teaching basically how to become a Brahmana. It's not just teaching. We may think it's actually just teaching deity worship, because it's being run by Nrsimha Kavacha, who's the deity worship minister, and Jananivas Prabhu and Pankajangri Prabhu. But actually, it is teaching about Pujari service. It's teaching how to serve the deities, how to dress the deities. If you want to learn how to do nice headgear for the deities, and then you can go there and learn it. You can learn cooking for the deities. But more than that, it's actually teaching how to come to the rabbinical level. So it's also teaching all about the samskaras, for instance, which is touched upon in this. I mean, it's all the middle of the purport is all about yagyas. So how to do yagyas, how to do samskaras, to learn because actually they can be engaged for preaching those things. Just like here, I'm sure many, I've actually met devotees who actually became interested in Krishna consciousness through attending a wedding here. Actually, I mean, some people are not so in favor of the practice of weddings, but actually I have met people who actually just came here for a wedding and became interested and became devotees. So that is so. In the same way, like especially people from Indian families, they are wanting to do various ceremonies, like the first grain ceremony, or so many. There's apparently 10 different samskars. I'm not qualified to speak about them. So those things then can be engaged to interest people in Krishna consciousness. Like, for instance, in Manchester, I have an opportunity to do that. People are sometimes ringing up and saying, "Oh, some relative has left their body. Can we need a pandit?" I said, "Well, we don't have any pandits here, but you can come, and the best thing you can do is actually you can feed the devotees, the Vaishnavas." So sometimes people are very attached. It must be actually some particular ceremony that they're used to. But actually, Nrsimha Kavasya Prabhu was mentioning to me when I was talking to him about the Mayapur Academy and their courses. He was telling me that actually in India there are so many different ceremonies. One person from one part of the world thinks that it should be done this way for the marriage ceremony, say, and from another part of India they think it should be done a different way. Another part, another way. He said there's 5 or 6 different things, so you can't satisfy everybody in that. So therefore, actually, in this day and age, the best thing you just feed the devotees, sponsor the prasadam, and then come and chant Hare Krishna. So this is because Prabhupada is saying here how Lord Chaitanya inaugurated the easiest performance of yajna, namely the Sankirtan yajna. So these things are an opportunity. Like many times we have people just coming on to the Manchester temple, and they just want to come and stand in front of the altar and say a few prayers. But I don't let them get away with that, actually, doing that. So I say, have you got a few minutes? And they usually say, yes, we've got a few minutes, at least 10 minutes or something. So I say, okay, sit down. And then, even though I'm a hopeless musician, I know a few basic notes on the harmonium. So I just teach them how to chant Hare Krishna, just to follow me. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu. So usually, and then it gives me the opportunity to explain actually that this is the yajna for this age. That by chanting Hare Krishna, we are actually perfecting our lives, we are elevating ourselves and purifying the atmosphere of the whole world. And I can explain, because there it's Panchatattva, and I can explain about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like that. So this is the best yajna that we can perform. Just like Krishna, when he was in Vrindavan playing with his cowherd boys, and I think the occasion was that I may be wrong, so you can correct me, but they just killed a few demons, so that always makes Krishna and the cowherd boys a bit hungry. Maybe it was what was his name? What's the name of the demon who was in the form of an ass, who was in Talavan? Denakasura, yeah. I was just listening actually to Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. Many of you may have heard. He was explaining about this episode, of Dhenukasura, and how actually, if it's not explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's a brief version, but in some other place, I don't know if it's the Garga Samhita, something like that, he said, that actually all the cowherd boys were engaged in fighting with Dhenukasura, and because like one was taking a stick and beating him on the head, one was just punching him somewhere. One little gopa didn't want to be left out, so he ran up to Dhenukasura and just kicked him like that. So they were all engaged. I'm not going into that story, but they were all engaged. So they all got a bit hungry. So Krishna said, because actually what happened was, I think this was the connection, that they originally went into the Talavan forest. It was Talavan, I think, wasn't it? And they thought, oh, these wonderful fruits are on these trees, but nobody can eat them because this demon Dhenukasura is guarding them, and he's not even eating them himself. And this is the demoniac mentality. They're so these beautiful fruits, and he's just guarding them like a miser and not even using them like that. So the cowherd boys, they wanted Krishna and Balaram to taste these wonderful fruits, but they knew that if they said, "Oh, Krishna, why don't you take these fruits?" that Krishna and Balaram wouldn't necessarily be so interested. So they wanted to be sure that that they would go and deal with Dhenukasura and his friends, asuras. So they said, "Oh, we would like to have those fruits in Talavan forest." So then Krishna would say, "Oh yes, okay, let's go and get those fruits." So then, so they therefore went, and then Krishna and Balaram dealt with Dhenukasura and his mob, but they didn't eat the fruits because they'd been contaminated by the blood of Dhenukasura and the other asses of the wood. So they just left the fruits there. So they were hungry. So then Krishna went to, said to the cowherd boys, "You go to these brahmanas. They're doing a yajna nearby. So, but don't say that I want them, because I'm just a Vaishya, you know. So they may not want to give me, but just say that we're hungry. We need some, or say that Krishna and Balaram are hungry, and so they went there. But we all know the story. That actually the brahmanas were a little proud of their position, and they decided, and they just ignored these little boys. You know, who are they? We're doing an important yajna here. We mustn't be interrupted. We must finish. You know, maybe at the end they thought, you know, we can give to them, but not now. We must follow strictly the yajna performance. So the boys went back, and then Krishna sent them back again to. He said, "You go to their wives and see what they do." So the brahmanas' wives, they immediately just dropped everything, and they started taking everything that they could and giving it to Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys. So after that, the brahmanas realized actually that this is that their wives actually were great devotees, and and then they felt repentant. They felt that actually, this is what we should do. First of all, we should serve Krishna. That is the actual purpose of yajna. Krishna, a few other points Prabhupada is making in these in this long purport is that he says that yajna is required for otherwise there'll be insufficient rain. And of course, actually, that was the argument that the cowherd men were making in Vrindavan when they decided they wanted to do the Indra Yajna. And but then Krishna started questioning him. He was only a small boy at that time. Was he 7 years old, something like that? And Nanda Maharaj says, "Oh, you're too young to understand these things." Krishna says, "No, I'm not. There's no secrets in a good family. So please tell me." So Nanda Maharaj explained actually that we're dependent on Indra because he sends the rains, and if we don't have rains, then the grass won't grow and the cows won't be able to be fed and the grains won't grow and things. So we're dependent on him. But Krishna says, "Well, is this a Vedic ceremony or is it just a traditional thing that you're doing here?" And actually, Nanda Maharaj had to kind of admit, well, actually, really, it's a traditional ceremony. It's maybe not so Vedic. So Krishna started preaching to him Karma Mimamsa philosophy, in actual fact, basically to annoy Indra, because he was realizing that Indra was getting a little proud. Anyway, he actually says, we're really dependent on Govardhan Hill. Because Govardhan Hill, on so much wonderful grass is there and the cows pasture on Govardhan Hill. So we should really worship Govardhan Hill, the cows and the brahmanas. So why don't we do a Govardhan Yagya? Govardhan Puja. So Krishna persuaded them that. So that was another occasion when Krishna was showing actually that demigod worship is not required. That actually those who worship the demigods are alpa medasa, like he says in the Bhagavad Gita, antavattu palam tesham tadbhavati alpa medasham. That those who, and why are they less intelligent? Those who worship the demigods, because their fruits are temporary, limited and temporary. But actually, if we worship Krishna, everything comes. If we just depend on Krishna, everything is provided. We don't need to worry for our welfare or our needs of bodily needs or any other needs. Actually, Krishna will provide everything. So this is one of the lessons. So basically, and also just one final point, a very important point actually, that we can definitely use in preaching, is that we think we're creating so many things, but actually we're not. We're just taking what Krishna creates, what nature provides, like Prabhupada lists it here, the grains, the fruits, the vegetables, the milk and sugar, also the heat, light, water, air, the sulfur, metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, all these essentials are all provided already by Krishna. We actually haven't created anything. All we do is manipulate those things a bit. So, therefore we are dependent actually on Krishna and his creation. So, these are the basic points Prabhupada is making in this purport. That actually Brahminical culture is required. We need to become Brahmanas and make more Brahmanas. We also need to have Kshatriyas to run society. We don't need to worship the demigods directly. If we just worship Krishna, that is sufficient. All the necessities of life will be provided by Krishna. They already are being actually. We just have to recognize that fact, and therefore not to strive unnecessarily for our necessities of life. And finally, and most importantly, that actually the best yagya in this age is the Sankirtan yagya. The chanting of the holy name, the distribution and glorification of Krishna through the distribution of books and knowledge about Krishna. And because it's the easiest thing in this day and age to perform. Anybody can do it, Prabhupada says, who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. It's not difficult. You don't have to be highly trained Actually, you don't have to go to the Mayapur Academy. You can just, any devotee can teach you how to actually perform the Sankirtan Yagya. Just how to chant Hare Krishna, how to read and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. So this is our great fortune, that we have the easiest process. We don't have to go through such austerities as are required to become brahmanas or yogis. We just have to chant the holy name of Krishna and teach others to chant the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any questions or realizations? Or